there is certainly a gap between the haves and the have-nots and their experiences with the justice system. But we are seeing a peculiar set of events here where the very elite of the elites of the country are facing the justice system for their alleged crimes. Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. I'm going to start off here by reading a bit from the Gospel of John chapter 13, where Jesus talks about this topic of justice and judgment, his own judgment of the world. This is actually John chapter 12. He says, "And if any man hear my words and believe not, I judge him not, for I came not to judge the world, but to save the world. He that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words hath one that judgeth him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day." I would encourage everyone to read the Gospels and read all of these teachings and sayings that we have given to us about Jesus as the judge and what he expects from us and the criteria by which he will judge the world. Jesus' laws are not hard to keep. They are very plain, very intuitive. They go well with our human nature, if we believe in Jesus and have the Holy Spirit, because they have to do with love, with having a heart after God's own heart, a heart that reaches out to others and puts others first and gives preference to the needs of others. It's so important to believe in Jesus, to accept his words, and to confess his lordship and his resurrection, because there's so much benefit that comes from that, so much benefit that we can bring into the world and enjoy ourselves, and we prepare ourselves and the world around us for these events that lead from one age to the next as God reveals his plan for mankind. I've been thinking a lot about the topics of justice and judgment as I keep reading through the Gospels and keep working on the book of Revelation. You can watch my series there in the link above. So we've got another Donald Trump story in the news, and this poor guy continues to land in more hot water. If that makes sense, more hot water. He's already in trouble for a number of improprieties and possible crimes. But this is the big one. This is one that people, myself included, were always wondering, is he going to have to face some kind of consequences for what he did in regards to the 2020 presidential election and his involvement in the January 6th riot at the Capitol? Well, it appears that things are moving in that direction. I'm going to read here from the headline from Yahoo News: "Trump indicted in federal January 6th investigation." Former President Donald Trump, a 2024 presidential candidate already facing multiple criminal cases, has been indicted for a third time. The Justice Department notified Trump on Tuesday that a grand jury has voted to indict him over his efforts to hold on to power following his loss in the 2020 election, including his actions leading up to the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. He has been summoned to appear in federal court at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. So since that very eventful day, January 6, 2021, there has been an ongoing investigation with a lot of government resources being devoted to figuring out who was involved, who was responsible for what, and who deserves what kinds of consequences. There's already been a number of trials of people involved in the events of that day, and a number of sentences have already been served. People have served probation or prison sentences, like the famous Jacob Chansley, or so-called QAnon shaman, who already served his time and was released. Now, people often say that in the United States, I'm sure they say this about other countries, but they say that there is a two-tiered justice system where the rich and powerful are largely shielded from the law and their consequences that they face for their actions, while more ordinary people in the lower classes, the working classes and the middle classes, they are much more likely to face legal retribution for their actions and their crimes. And we certainly seem to have seen that in the case here of the January 6th so-called insurrection, where a number of the people involved who went into the Capitol with intent of disrupting the changeover administration, a number of those people have been brought to justice and sentenced for their actions. While Donald Trump himself, the man largely seemed to be encouraging and motivating those kinds of actions, using his voice as the President of the United States to encourage these kinds of actions, he has not faced any consequences. So this just shows that sometimes you just have to wait. If we jump to conclusions, we often find ourselves proven wrong. If someone were to say, well, Donald Trump just got away with it, that turned out to be wrong. This investigation has finally caught up to him, and he now finds himself indicted. And we can say that this is perhaps a victory for justice, where we see the rich and powerful, the former president himself, facing charges as many of his followers who he influenced have also faced. Again, a lot of people talk about there being a two-tiered justice system where one class of people gets away with things while the other class doesn't. In these very days, we have both the former president facing the justice system and the current president's own son, Hunter Biden, facing trial too for his own alleged crimes. So as someone who lives in the United States, I am glad to see the justice system working in the way that we would like to see it work, where the law is not influenced by people's status or connections. Now, a couple of instances here does not mean that this is just the way things are, that yes, the rich and powerful and famous always face justice for their actions. I think we would find through any kind of investigative journalism or talking to experts on the subject that there is certainly a gap between the haves and the have-nots and their experiences with the justice system. But we are seeing a peculiar set of events here where the very elite of the elites of the country are facing the justice system for their alleged crimes. Now, I've thought about this a lot. I wonder what could be going on in Donald Trump's mind that he could flub and screw up the handover of power to the Biden administration in such a self-destructive way. If he had just played things cool, done the so-called presidential thing, just acted like a sane, decent person in that situation of losing the election, he would have at the very least gone down in history as a respectable president. I'm sure he would always have his detractors, but by and large, the Republican Party and history in general would rehabilitate him, as it does with most American presidents, and he would be seen in somewhat of an honored position just by virtue of being an American president who avoided major scandals. And he might well have had a chance of making a political comeback in 2024, a rematch against Joe Biden as he is seeking, and by the time that vote comes along, people may have forgiven him his missteps, any mistakes he made handling COVID and other situations, and he would have had a good chance of making a return to the presidency, in my opinion. But he just really threw away so much of his legacy and any possible political career by just seriously messing up in such a destructive and narcissistic way with his attempts to invalidate and overturn the election. So life is a series of actions and reactions, rewards and consequences. It touches all of us, and Donald Trump is facing the reactions to his actions in the same kind of way that so many of his followers already have. It could well be the trial of a lifetime to watch this all unfold. And each new development in the story is sure to bring a lot of media attention, and I'm sure we'll all have lots to talk about following Donald Trump and his amazing story as he goes on now close to 80 years old and just not slowing down, this crazy adventure that he's put himself on. I want to get back a little bit to the topic of justice and this supposed two-tier justice system. Is this a remedy for that? On this question, I have some thoughts about that. I want to hear your thoughts. Is this a remedy? Do we make things better by bringing more of the upper class to trial for their crimes? Or would it maybe be better to instead tackle this problem of justice inequality by making things easier for people on the other end of the spectrum, making things easier on the poor, easier on the undocumented migrants, making it easier on people in prison for drug charges? The United States has so many people in its prison systems, and so many of them are the poor, the working class, the undocumented. It really is a system that skews towards the weaker part of the population. The people who don't have the money, don't have the security, don't have the opportunity, but do have to face the law for their actions. Now, in my opinion, rather than amending this system by bringing more of the elites to trial, I think a more desirable solution would be to fix things on the other end. Lift the burden of the law off of the poor and the working class, make things easier on those people in order to bring more balance and equity to the system. Let's make everybody on the same level as the elites when it comes to facing justice, when it comes to facing prison. The United States has the highest percentage of its population in prison of, I think, any country in the world. That can't be entirely necessary. I'm sure there's a better way to do things. But I really want to hear your thoughts on this. Is this a good thing to be bringing the former president to trial, to be bringing the current president's son, Hunter Biden, to trial? Is this a turn for the better to see our elites, our upper classes being brought to justice? What kind of possible ramifications could this have on the future? But yeah, please share your thoughts, leave your comments. And I'm going to end this here by reading some words from the Apostle Paul in his second letter to the Corinthians, where he, again, talking about this topic of justice and judgment. He says, "Therefore, we make it our aim, whether present or absent, to be well-pleasing to him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive the things done in the body according to what he has done, whether good or bad. Knowing therefore the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. But we are well known to God, and I also trust are well known in your consciences." I just love the clarity that we can get from reading the New Testament, reading the words of the apostles, reading the words of Jesus himself. Yeah, go read up about the topic of justice, judgment, mercy, how it applies to us, and how we should apply to others. Let's keep our minds on the Word, keep our minds on the way that Jesus wants things to be. Well, thanks so much for watching. Once again, please leave some comments about what you think about all this and what you think about what I had to say about it. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.